Guess who's back? The Application to Admission podcast after a whole 2-week hiatus, maybe longer than that. Bottom line is that it is application season. We are the Application to Admission podcast, and I am Shareem Herndon Brown, founder and chief education officer at Strategic Admissions Advice. I'm an independent consultant because I have a partner in writing who does the professional administrative side at the Emory University as the Senior Associate Dean. His name is, you can speak now, sir.
Hey, Timothy Fields, Senior Associate Dean of Undergraduate Admission at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, but also co-author of the best-selling book, The Black Family's Guide to College Admission, a conversation about education, parenting, and race. Shareem, it is November.
It is.
You had a big deadline that you had.
I'm breathing.
Did you make it across the finish line?
I'm breathing. I'll take that. No, November 1st in the application world is a big date, early action, early decision. It's when Tim, shifts his gears, starts reading those applications on his end. So, yes, my clients overwhelmingly apply to most of their colleges in late September and throughout October. So, once November 1st hits, I am very celebratory. Plus, November is just a great month. It's a month for royalty and prestige and history. It's a very important month. So yes, I'm a very happy, smiling human being because the application process is moving nicely. Is that a good way to say it?
Tell me about this royalty prestige that happens in November.
It's not for everybody. You know what I'm saying? I'm based on discretion. And if you don't know, then just watch. For those who are listening, watch our YouTube, of this recording, and you'll know more. But I don't want to be self-consuming or reaching out for fame. So I'm just going to make sure we give the people what they want. It is November, folks, and we're very, very blessed to have a guest today that Tim is going to share with you their bio in a second. But we want to make sure that you know that during this season, like I said, it's application season, November 1st, November 15th, December 1st, definitely January 1st, big deadlines. The FAFSA becomes available in December as well. So we want your head to be, how do I tie this up well, right? January 1st is a big deadline. You may have a few other applications or financial aid stuff to do in January as well. But we really want parents, students, whoever's listening, counselors to feel good as they come into the stretch run. And we're here to drop some jewels, give you some information about what you can do to ensure that. And our guests will do that. Tim, I'm telling you what I'm doing during this time. I'm reading essays and, checking portals and talking to parents, but also cyclically re-upping with juniors, engaging with sophomores, meeting freshmen. I like how I said that. Bottom line is it's always a great time to start early to get information, but enough about the application part. There's an admission part to this podcast, which is your turn. What are you doing now, sir?
I am reading files, and I will be reading files for the next 4 months. So as we come on these podcasts and you say, Tim, what you doing? I'll be like, I'm reading files. We
do you read on paper screen? How do you guys do it nowadays?
How old are you? We read on screen.
Oh yes, I have a lot of gray hair, as you can see. No, you're right. I was really saying that for the people. Can you explain to them what reading files means?
Yes, absolutely. So we review files in Slate, which is a very large CRM. A lot of schools throughout the country use it. Applications are downloaded from the Common App, the Coalition, QuestBridge, and then we are able to review those files on the computer. And so right now we had our November the 1st deadline, which is our early decision. But we also are a QuestBridge partner. So actually QuestBridge is the first group of applications that we're reading. So immediately after following recording this podcast, I will get back to reviewing QuestBridge files. And then, we'll get to early decision ones. Then we get to scholars, regular decisions, and probably up until March the 20th. I'll be reviewing files. We are looking at we may have over 35,000 applications this year. So a lot of file reading, but at the same time, we're still, doing recruitment, doing outreach. We have information sessions. So, this is a very busy time, but excited to see all the great work that you, other professionals across the country have helped students put together their best application. And that actually leads us into our guest, which is a college counselor.
A school counselor. Let's use the right terminology here, please.
Well, we'll ask her. Is it a
Okay.
college counselor, school counselor? Depending upon the school type. I mean, but we want to make sure we introduce them in the right way. But we have Candice Mackey. Hey, Shereen, you remember how we met Candice?
Tim, we don't, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Remember that, okay? We met Candice at GWI, which is a subset of NACAC for admissions professors of color, guiding to the way to inclusion.
Yes, yes.
Candice was in Las Vegas in July 2023. Yes, and we met Candice Mackey out there as a school/college counselor, obviously in our professional role. So Vegas was an awesome time. We had a great dinner. People, get your minds out the gutter. And no, it was great to meet her, connect with her again in Baltimore, connect with her again in California. Candice is like a regular for us.
I mean, Candice is great, but she works for LA Unified School District. She's been there for the past 6 years. She has been in school counseling for the past 17 years, and currently she is head of the Public School Counselor Special Interest Group. She is a co-chair for that group, so she's doing a lot in the profession. When I, called and asked her about being on here, she's like, "I'm trying to meet these deadlines. I'm trying to get these letters of recommendation in," but she made the time. So we want to welcome Candice to the Application to Admission podcast. Woo! See, I'm clapping for you. See, he didn't clap for you, Candice.
Candice, we speak telepathically. We don't need all that fanfare. She knows how I appreciate her. She sees the sincerity in my eyes. Thank you, Candice, for being here, for sharing the jewels that you will, for being part of the application side. Help people understand the application side. I don't want the fame, Tim. I want her to share the information. Please,
Absolutely.
Candice, thank you for being here.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for having me. It's always a pleasure to be able to just share this space with you all. And I think having these important conversations to many different audiences, whether they're parents and caregivers or counselors, or of course to students. So thank you so much for having me. I think just like what you were just saying, Shareem and Tim, with regard to, this is a busy time right now. Busy for families, busy, of course, for our students, busy for all of us who work closely with students and families, and really helping our young folks to be able to sort of plan their lives after high school. And of course, we're now in November, so a lot of the early deadlines have passed us, but we still have a little bit more that are approaching in the next week or so. And then, of course, a lot of regular decision deadlines that are approaching in December and January and whatnot. So this is a time where I think being organized is critical and key. Still being able to find some balance with kind of keeping your sanity. And again, this is, I would say, both for students and families, but also the professionals who are in this industry and working with students during this time. And so, for me, obviously, I'm a public school counselor. My course load or caseload is about almost 200 seniors. So I don't have this astronomical number of students that I'm working with, like some other school counselors, and particularly at some of the public schools. But I don't have a small caseload. So I have to be very mindful and I would say, resourceful with how I can best serve my students in the ways that they deserve to be served during this time. So it's just it's a lot going on with meeting deadlines. We all have deadlines that we have to meet. And as I mentioned, just being organized. Of course, I have, and Shareem, you mentioned, you have your juniors and your sophomores that you're also working with. We can't neglect them during this time. But of course, the priority right now is our seniors, and really making sure that we are getting, keeping them along during this process, keeping them focused. It's such a special time. And a critical time, because you're only a senior at one time, at least in high school, and you're only applying to college during this time one time. And so I always remind students and families, like, it's not that you'll never apply to college, but this is the only time that you're going to apply being a senior in high school. So it's just it's a critical time, and the stakes are high. They're high.
Yeah. So Candice, obviously, you're in LA. Unified. And what school are you at in LA Unified?
Yeah, so I'm at Los Angeles Center for Enriched Studies. We are a magnet school. We're actually a 6th through 12th grade span school. And we are the first magnet school in LAUSD.
And so working there, obviously you have a focus on, getting students ready for college, but are there other responsibilities that you have beyond just helping students prepare for college that, come with being at your school?
Yes. So for me, my title and role is I am specifically the college counselor. We do have other school counselors
Told you
who
she was a college counselor, Shireen.
Candice, we're better than that. You heard what I said about them stuff. God, you're right.
No, but I appreciate Shireen, that you were very mindful with acknowledging that school counselors are school counselors, right? So that is the proper term. I know that sometimes people say guidance counselor. That's a sort of dated and not appropriate term. So school counselor is the right term, and it's it's sort of, I guess you could say, a school counselor sort of encompasses all. But my specific role and title at my school is college counselor. And we certainly have school counselors that are here who serve different grade levels, and they work closely with students comprehensively, academic, personal, social, emotional, and those areas. But for me specifically, I am my focus is definitely college and career. So we do definitely have a high going college culture at my school, but we understand that not everyone's going to go to college, right? And so and we're mindful of that. And so my role is to really be able to support students to where they have opportunities and options, and really support them in achieving whichever goal that they may have after high school, whether it's pursuing the military or going to community college or pursuing a trade or whatever it may be. In those areas. I also have other responsibilities where I'm a test coordinator. So I am responsible for all the AP exams that take place in May. We also do SAT school day at my school site. So I'm responsible for that as well. So of course, in addition to helping students, I do have these other tasks and responsibilities that come along with, I would say, kind of falling under the umbrella of, preparing students for college.
Candice, who do I need to talk to about getting you a raise? That's a lot. You make sure you share that information with me. We need to have a conversation, because you are a very qualified, personable human being who wants to help all these kids. But hey, you got limits. You got how much bandwidth you have.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's definitely the testing is the least favorite part of my job, because I do feel like it totally takes me away from being able to work directly with students and provide those direct services that I feel that they deserve and need. So it is, it sort of comes with the job, but I'm hoping at some point that is something that I'm able to be relieved of, so that I can have more time in that area to be able to work, more closely with students and families.
I know Tim has a bunch of questions right for you, so I'm gonna sneak mine in because it's the one that matters most to me. As you are advising seniors right now and their college lists, okay?
Yes.
I'm big on college list building and helping families to really think about the cost of college, number one, the location of college. Again, you work with a large California population. Do they all stay in state, Cal State, the UC system? Interest and measure. I'm thinking about the personal insight questions on the UC application. What are their academic interests? And then what is their potential career? Like, say, part of your title is career coordinator. So college list builder for me is cost, location, major, career. As you talk to your seniors, what are some of the things that you emphasize in finalizing their college list? How do you go about that from this time in November through, California is November 30th, right? For the UC system. What's the Cal State deadlines? And then how do you think about January 1st?
Yeah, so these are really good questions, because we are at that point where these deadlines are approaching. This year in particular, our UCs and Cal States, they have moved the deadline to December 2nd. So it's not November 30th. I think they were mindful that November 30th falls on a weekend this year. And so December 2nd is on a Monday. So they have granted that date for this year to be the deadline. So with that, again, we're at a point where many students who are applying to college and thinking about applying to college this is a time to really start solidifying and narrowing down your list. And so I really drive the point home on the importance of, number one, having a balanced list, and ensuring that students have options that they will be comfortable with, whether those particular colleges fall as, in different categories as being like likely schools that they have a very high chance of being admitted to those target schools where, it's sort of like a 50-50 to, of course, those reach schools, right, that are going to be more on the selective side and that they need to be prepared that they may not be admitted to those schools. So, it's important that, again, they have these balanced lists, and that they also have a reasonable number of colleges that they're applying to. And what I mean by that is, you're not just applying to college during this time. You still have your courses that you're taking at school. A lot of students they're involved in different extracurricular activities. Some students may have different responsibilities at home. So you're taking on additional tasks and responsibilities that you didn't have, let's say, last year, or just any other time throughout high school. So really having this reasonable amount of schools that you can give your undivided attention to and be focused, put your best foot forward, and having a list where it's going to be curated for you. It is a personalized list that makes sense and works for you financially. It works for you, like the school community and what it offers. And I have seen students having the most success when they're able to have this sort of like balance, I say healthy list that also can yield the most results as well. So that is really, a message that I drive home early on, not just in senior year. I'm having these conversations in 10th grade and 11th grade, but of course, really having those reminders to my families right now, the importance of having a personalized list that is balanced.
Excellent. So, you were talking about, obviously, lists, and, earlier you talked to, you have students who are going to the military. Some students maybe go to 2-year schools. Obviously it sounds like the most of them are going to 4-year schools, and not all of those schools require letters of recommendation. But when somebody, obviously as the school counselor, or the college counselor, you're writing a lot of letters of recommendation. What are some of the key points that you are making sure to highlight in those letters of recommendation for students?
Yeah, so it is definitely it is letter season.
I just want to make a good point. There's a great question. Can you address for parents what they should be hoping for a letter conveys to a school, but also for the educators who are listening? Here are some tips on things you should include for your kids to really have a robust recommendation, just for those two separate audiences. Thank you.
Yeah, so the letter is obviously about how others are speaking about that student, right? It is another voice that's coming in. And so there are differences between what a teacher is going to speak on versus what a school counselor is going to speak on. So we know for a teacher, they really should be focused on how the student shows up in their classroom in that particular class, what type of student that they are, how they're engaged in that class. Are they a student who works well with others? Are they a student where they may come to your class after school or stay behind after the bell rings to get extra help or ask questions? And so it's really, I would say that the teacher letter is sort of really talking about the experiences that they have with that student and how they show up as a student within that class. The counselor is really speaking on the student more of like holistically. So in my role, I'm not in that student's class. I really don't know day to day how that student, what type of student they may be in the classroom. I can see their grades, but I don't know the sort of day-to-day interactions that are taking place. But I definitely am more interested to know more things about what the student is interested in, what their goals may be, how they are involved within our school community, how they're involved outside of our school community. Also, when I say community, that may also mean within their family. Some students have different responsibilities and leadership roles, just having to be responsible for younger siblings when they leave school, or maybe they're helping out because there's an elderly parent inside the home, or an elderly grandparent, right? So my role, or I would say the role of a school counselor, is really sort of talking about the student, as I mentioned, holistically. We're talking about who they are, their interests, and really how they show up in these other environments outside of the classroom. I also like to mention also, when I hear anecdotes from other teachers, or sometimes the student themselves may give me some sort of antidote, I like to include that information in my letters as well. I think that it allows, it provides more of a personalization when you're able to sort of add these, like whether it's a statement or an observation that you have. And sometimes the smallest little thing could be like the really big thing as well. And so those are really, I would say, when it comes to letter of recommendations, and we're really looking at personalizing them, those are really the differences with how a teacher would speak about a student versus how a school counselor would speak about a student.
No, I think that's great, Candice, because what you just really were trying to say, I'm gonna make it succinct for y'all. She says, I do well at using the anecdotes to add color to the recommendation, right? You want to sprinkle it with a little seasoning, right? It's Thanksgiving time almost. After you've gotten the hard numbers and then the scores, the anecdote provides just a little bit of seasoning, a little bit of color. Thank you, Candice. For those educators listening out there, NACAC actually has I think a format, like a bullet point suggestion list on how to write letters of recommendation. It's a great resource if you don't know. But Candice is spot on by trying to help you understand what a great recommendation is. Thank you, Candice.
And so obviously the recommendation for some schools is a part of that, but there are a lot of schools that require essays. And, obviously, you're helping students find their voice. What would be some, suggestions or some tips you're giving students as they're get together their essays, whether or not be the personal essay or specific supplemental essays for schools? What are some general tips that you may have? And for this purpose, you are the expert on essays on this call.
Yeah, so essays are they're important. The essay is,
Candice, excuse me. I don't mean, do you see him just smiling and grinning at me right now? Do you see how he deliberately just put that line in as the expert on the call today? That's what he said. I'll be fair, but he took the dig at me. It was unnecessary. Ken, I want you to have the platform. Please, Candice, continue.
I did hear that I was the expert. I did. I got that.
Jeez, low, Candice, low. It's not even the weekend.
Well, I think honestly, I think we're all experts in our own right when it comes to essays. I know, yes, I'll just say we're all experts in it. But one thing that so two things I'm going to say about the essay. Number one, that's my favorite part of working with students on the application. I learned so much from my students when I am either sort of helping them to develop their essay or just really reading their essay and giving them feedback. I believe that it's a humanistic part of the application as well. And it allows, as you mentioned, Shireen, students and Tim, it allows students to be able to sort of use their voice. But I also remind students that, listen, on the other end of it, when it comes to admissions counselors, they're humans who are reading your essay as well, right? So it is complete human interaction, and one of the more sort of personal piece on your application. So with that, the essay is important, and it takes time. It takes time to really develop and refine a good essay. And what I mean by time is students should really devote time to be able to write a couple of drafts. I also say walk away from it as well, right? Like, don't expect that you are going to write your final essay in one shot and be done with it. No, it should really be, it's a personalized piece. And so with that, it should be where you're giving yourself that time to be able to, whether it's brainstorming whether it's like a purge dump, like just getting your thoughts out and not even being concerned about the grammar or about the word count, but just kind of dumping your thoughts out and then being able to step away from it, come back to it. And then that's when you really start working on it and refining it to where the student is feeling really good about it. And of course, being able to have where there are someone or maybe two people who are proofreading your essays. I like to suggest that students maybe speak to an English teacher if they're able to, certainly their counselor or college counselor. I think, parents, I understand why parents would want to look at it, but I think at times parents can get a little over involved in their children's essays. And so I think parents have to be mindful that this is your child's voice. It's not your essay, it's your child's essay. But certainly, again, just being able to devote a reasonable amount of time with writing your essays and those supplemental essay questions, and of course, getting feedback and making sure that you are having someone to look it over.
And so obviously people can write about essays about whatever they want. And I'm just going to deal with the elephant in the room. We are recording this on November the 7th. And so there are a lot of deadlines that are January the 1st. And there may be people who feel either kind of way about the recent election. Would you, or Shireen, I want you to jump in here. Would you recommend, if somebody has some big feelings about the recent election, to write about that in their essay?
Now you want my opinion?
Yes, I asked for it.
All right, Candice, please take the lead.
I was going to say, let's go with our expert, Shireen.
No, ladies first. I still believe chivalry is far from dead. Please, Candice, lead. I like women in presidential and official positions. That's how I feel. I don't know everybody else, but I like women to lead. Go ahead.
So I think if you're just writing like, oh, this is just how I'm feeling about, this particular time, that's one thing, but that may be more necessary just for journal writing, right? I think if you are, let's say, if you have, there are some important thoughts and feelings around, let's say, as recent as the election results, right? And if it, number one, answers the question, because you want to make sure that you're answering the essay question. But number two, how does that tie into maybe who you are, what your beliefs, what your aspirations and goals are? How are you impacted? So I think it needs to be intentional. It needs to make sense and it needs to be intentional. And so I wouldn't answer it like absolutely no, don't write about it, or absolutely yes, write about it. I think it really just depends on the question. And I think it depends on the student and the ways in which it may has impacted them or shaped them, and how that sort of ties into them as a whole and their entire profile.
I concur. So thank you very much, Candice, for explaining that. It's a tricky subject that, there was an old adage, I'm dating myself now, but they say college essays don't write about religion and politics. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it's very, I like it when students are vulnerable and revealing about their spiritual beliefs or who they're becoming spiritually. So I don't poo-poo that. I will say this about politics. I do think we live in a very volatile time. And I think, as you said, you have a journal for that. There's a time and a place to display certain kinds of writing. Well, so I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I'm going to say, what's the point? The decision's already done. What are you trying to do? Just get your point across and tell somebody how either upset you are or how elated you are? Keep a journal. So I think there are other parts to who you're becoming or who you have been other than an election that we kind of built upon the momentum of the past 90 days. So that is my expert 2 cents, Tim, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. We always welcome it, Shireen, as our resident. So you're our resident expert. She's our expert of the day. You see how this works? Resident expert of the day.
Butter me up. Got you. Thanksgiving time. I got you.
There you go. The only thing that I'll add is just, in talking about these topics, and this goes across the board, is depending upon the office, there might be 1, 2, 5, 15 different people who will review that essay. And these are individuals, these are people who have feelings, biases, and all kinds of things. And so, you may want to write something, you say, yeah, this is how I feel, but you don't know how it makes that person on the other side feel. And as much non-biased training as we go through, people still have feelings about things. So I would, make sure that if you want to share it, to Candice's point, is like, what's the end goal of sharing this, but also recognizing that there are people on the other end that may interpret what you write in any number of ways. So definitely, as people are thinking about essays, it's a big part, as Candice is saying, but I think you need to be thoughtful. One thing, Candice, that I know is a big part of your work, but I really want you to kind of really highlight the importance of deadlines. What do deadlines mean in this process? And so, as deadlines, you mentioned the December 2nd deadline. What is guidance you give to students as far as meeting deadlines?
Yeah, so deadlines are everything. I really stress the importance that they're not forgiving. Like, you either are going to meet them or you're not. So this is not the same deadline that maybe a teacher will give you an extension to turn an assignment in, or you get to do a redo for something. These are hard, firm deadlines that you must adhere to. So I really, really emphasize, again, being organized. And part of being organized is having a place, right, where you're either using like a spreadsheet or Google Docs, something where you can note all of your college deadlines. You may have some notes about that college. You may have written in another column just some of the requirements, if they have essays that they require, or how many letter of recommendations. And so really working from those deadlines, working from the soonest ones all the way to the ones that are, sort of further out, and just being really mindful, because they're not forgiven. And again, this is a critical time. There are no redos during this time. So it is, it's just really imperative that students, and I would even say parents, are aware of these deadlines, being very mindful of ensuring that they are managing their time, and that they are ensuring that they are getting things turned in and submitted, before the deadline. I would say not even the day of, but before the deadline. Don't wait till the last minute to submit your application or to write those essays. Please don't wait till the last minute. Anything can happen, right? We know at times, especially when it comes to like the UCs and the Cal States, that application, there's a lot of heavy traffic that is taking place on that last day. And sometimes the system can and does crash, or, there's glitches that are taking place. And so in order to, sort of alleviate that stress, because that's a whole different problem that you don't want to have, just really ensuring that, I say, work to, if there's a deadline that's November 1st or a deadline that's December 2nd, build in your deadline at least, no more than like 3 or 4 days before that. So you're just not really trying to do these things at the very last minute. And again, knowing that there are no redos. One other thing I wanted to mention too is that, and it kind of goes back to letter of recommendation. So we know that, yes, there are some colleges that require letter of recommendations, and especially for, students that are listening on the call, and parents, the folks who are writing your child's letter of recommendation, so those school counselors and those teachers, sometimes there are deadlines that schools have as well, that students have to adhere to make these requests, because it takes time for counselors and teachers and adults to write these letter of recommendations. I know at my school site, students have to make the requests, anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks prior, because we are writing multiple letter of recommendations. And so even if it's not I mention this because even though colleges have deadlines, there are sometimes deadlines that are built within schools and policies that schools have that students must adhere to during this process with applying to colleges and requesting different information that they may need. So deadlines are so crucial, and I just feel like a spreadsheet and reminders, even if you put it in your phone, whatever you need to do to where you know that you're going to have that, visibly, you'll be able to see, like, this is what I need to be doing, and being able to track it and to keep you organized to where you are, staying on top of those important dates.
Unforgiving. That's the key word, everybody. That's the word she said. Those deadlines are unforgiving. Yay or nay. Make it or don't. It's a wrap. So thank you.
Because Candice, I have one more question. You're in California. Obviously, California has its own unique system to them. A lot of people are applying to UCLA. They had over 100,000 apps. There are a lot of people applying to UC Berkeley and other UC schools. For people who are not in California, what is something that they should know as they're thinking about applying to one of the California schools?
Yes. So California, we actually have the largest public school system just in the country. And we have a lot of fantastic schools, I must admit. But again, for this particular year, the deadline is December 2nd. So it's not the traditional November 30th. But if you want to ingrain that November 30th in your head, I think that's a good plan to have, because you don't want to wait until the last minute or the last day. It's not favorable, I would say, to wait until the last day to submit the application. I would also just say, when it comes to UCs and Cal States, or definitely, I'm going to speak more or less on the UCs, being mindful that 5 out of the 9 undergraduate campuses receive over 100,000 applications. So there are many students who are applying to these to our UCs in particular, both in California, outside of California, and really across the world. Being mindful of the different majors that you are looking to apply to, and knowing that there are some majors that are going to be, of course, more selective to get into. They just admit lower number of students. So being mindful of that. As it pertains to the UC system, they do not require, nor do they even look at SAT or ACT. So that is something that you would not be submitting to those schools. For some students, they may really like that. For others, they may feel different. But again, they are completely test-free school. And I think that being really just open-minded, and I would say for students and families to be open-minded, not just to the UCs, I think to colleges, period. Being open-minded as you are solidifying your list, as you are considering different schools, as you are applying to different schools, don't outrule school that you may have not either heard of or don't know much about. Don't outrule school, even if it has maybe a higher admittance rate than the next school. So I think this entire process is a journey, and really being intentional, being open-minded, being organized, and really prioritizing your needs, and knowing that you're important. It's not even about the institution, but really being mindful of your needs and what your goals are, both short-term and long-term, are really should be the priority, I would say. So I kind of spoke about the UCs, but I also felt that it was just important to kind of speak about colleges and this process collectively.
It's okay. We understand. You love California. It's where you live. It's where you raise your children. We get it, Candice. You don't got to apologize for that.
We love California too. California love.
Speak for yourself. Candice, are there any hidden gems out there across the country, schools in which you're like, you know what? I wish more kids looked at that school, like schools that you visited or sent kids to, who again, you're just, consistently impressed by how they serve or share with students and families?
Yeah, so I am a fan. I'm a fan of many schools, right? But again, it depends on the student as well. Just really looking at their interests, and looking at sort of what makes sense for the family. But I would say that one that comes to mind for me is there's a list that's called the Colleges That Changes Lives. And there are a lot of schools. There are about 40 schools on that list, and they're schools just really that are located across the country. But on that list of schools, within that list of schools, a lot of the schools are more liberal arts schools. And some of them are a little bit more smaller. But I have found those to be definitely a hidden gem for students and students that I know who have attended those schools. They have come away just feeling incredibly satisfied with their overall college experience, the relationships that they've built, the services that the colleges offer, and just really having a lot of closely knit community, feeling well prepared for just sort of life after college and going into their respective career and whatever they may choose to go into. And so that is those. I would say that is one list that I would like to highlight, the Colleges That Changes Lives. I think they really do stand by that name that's on the list. But I also believe that there are, again, there are historical Black colleges and universities that are fantastic. There are gender inclusive colleges, women's colleges that I feel that are, absolutely fantastic. And many other, flagship public schools or private schools. So I do love California, but I also do love colleges and institutions outside of California as well. And so I think what excites me is when students are really able to land somewhere where they feel good, and they're excited, and they really sort of leave that place, being better than what they were when they first started. I also love when students get excited where maybe they go somewhere where it wasn't their first choice, or wasn't a place where they maybe thought or considered, but then once they have made that decision and enroll into that school, they realize, you know what, this is the place for me. And I didn't expect this to be a place that I would really enjoy or really sort of come into my own. So I really, really love when, again, students just find the place that's right for them.
Yes, thank you. We definitely thank you for your time. We know you had to get up with us on the West Coast, so it means a lot. You shared a lot of great information, and we can't wait to share this with our audience. Shireen, we did it again.
Did it again. And again, spoken like a true educator. Candice, you're so generous with your time, energy, and effort, your talents. The children, the families are appreciative. But yes, the Application to Admission podcast, we are here. We are doing our thing, serving the people, trying to do our part and contribute to a better world. We're also authors of this great book. It's called The Black Family's Guide to College Admission and Conversation about Education, Parenting, and Race. It was co-authored by two gentlemen who sternly, strongly, firmly believe that education is the answer. So we hope that people are enjoying the podcast. We hope that people enjoy the book, and we hope that people enjoyed and learned from the great Candice Mackey. Candice, thank you again.
Thank you so much. And I just wish everyone out there good luck. It usually always ends up working out the way that it should be.
You're talking about Thanksgiving, right? Talking about Thanksgiving?
Yes, we're talking about Thanksgiving, holidays, whatever your pathway may be. And definitely.
Candice, last question. Most important question. Dressing or stuffing? What do you have at Thanksgiving? Dressing or stuffing?
I have dressing.
Oh man!
Hey, and we're out. And we are out.